So the topic tonight is hope, faith, and trust. So before we do that, let's come to a sitting position. So remember, if you can, it's good to sit on top of something like a meditation cushion or another cushion or a blanket. I fold up a blanket and this is comfy for me. And then close the eyes. Just bring the arms on the legs in any way that feels comfortable, where you can allow the legs to take the weight of the arms so that you're able to relax the arms, relax the shoulders, and relax the jaw. Relaxing all around the mouth. Relaxing the facial muscles. Relaxing around the eyes. And then start to tune into the breath. So noticing the breath to start with, just noticing the natural rhythm of the breath. Inhaling and exhaling. And then slowly start to regulate the breath. So trying to make the inhales and the exhales the same length. Feeling the expansion of the chest with the inhale. The lowering of the chest with the exhale. So making the inhales and the exhales the same length, and then seeing if you can add the soft sound of ujjayi. So it's equal breathing. Now we're going to start retaining the breath at the end of both the inhale and the exhale. So everybody exhale completely. Inhaling. And then bring the chin towards the sternum, retaining the breath, holding the breath for the same count as the inhale. Exhale. And then bring the chin to the sternum, retaining the breath. Inhale. Retain the breath. Exhale. Retain the breath. And then continuing at your own breathing rhythm. So you're holding the breath at the end of the inhale and the exhale for the same count as the inhale. So it's samavriti, it's equal breathing. And do 10 rounds. So and then just close your eyes and watch your breathing, trying to make the inhales and the exhales the same length. When you're finished, just stay sitting, the spine elongated, the shoulders relaxed. Just starting to let the breath come back to a natural breathing. Bring the palms together, and then rub the hands together, warming the palms up, and bring them over the eyes, under the glasses if you want, and slowly open the eyes behind the hands, and then release the hands. You got in, Ellen. I saw you were having some difficulties in and out. Okay, so the topic, hope, faith, and trust. So I thought it was a good topic for our time, and it kind of progresses on the last 3 talks that we had. So I think in general, our hope and our faith, to me, they're kind of like synonyms, they mean similar things, hope, faith, trust, that they're often fluctuating, sorry, to calm down after that breath. It's often fluctuating. You probably feel this, that sometimes you feel very hopeful, and then other times you feel really down, and we tend to kind of have waves like this. And in the whole spiritual path, what we're trying to do is have the waves not be so high or so low. So it's normal to have waves and to be a little bit rocky at some times. A little bit more happy, a little less happy. This is all just the normal human condition. But what's very disturbing is when we go from one high to a low. So we're trying to stay sort of in this middle path of waves. So I think, right now I think that the fluctuation might even be more pronounced. I know with myself it is, because it's such a strange situation we're in, because we're at home and and I've talked to a lot of friends just to see if this is a similar feeling, but a lot of people have said the same thing that I'm going to say, is that actually when you're at home you feel kind of fine, right? You're just kind of doing your stuff, and in some ways it even feels nice because you have more time to be quiet, and we're able to do some things that we didn't have time for before. And so in some ways, some of the people in the yoga community, anyway, the people I've been talking to, are really enjoying this time. But then on the other side, you watch the news, you hear what's happening, so many people are dying, so many people are suffering, and that what's to come is going to be a big, at least what the forecasts are, there's going to be a huge economical crash from this. And we don't really feel it right now because we still are running on our savings, at least us, I'm sure there's people that I haven't spoken to who are really feeling the financial crush right away. But for us, we're able to still buy our food and, do the things we need to do. So I think this kind of brings this real up and down feeling. I know for myself, overall I feel well, and then suddenly I'm just like, oh my God, what's going to happen? This is, and my mind starts moving with all these things that are to come, which I don't even know if they're going to come, but I imagine all those things. So we could ask ourselves, what is hope? So hope is the faith or trust in potential or possibility of, and then whatever you want to add to that. So it's the hope or the faith that we're going to survive this. It's the faith that we will go back to normal one day, whatever normal is. It's the faith that things will work out well. The faith in the spiritual path to find a certain amount of freedom. Faith in success, if you're doing some studies, the faith that you will succeed in your studies, for example. Faith in being able to feel happiness. It's just like the potential of the faith in whatever potential or possibility that you may be thinking right now. Okay, so this is what hope is. And then if you think about it, you could say that there's 2 types of hope, like 2 main types of hope. One is mature hope, which I'll talk about later. And then the other you could call magical hope, right? Like think about when you were a child, you would have all those fantasies about something that might happen, but it wasn't really based in reality. So the magical hope, what could we say as an example? Perhaps it's more narrow, right? It's really narrow in the sense of like, I want to win that award. I want to make this much money. It's and maybe even along with that, maybe less awareness behind it. Like I want to be super rich, or I want to be famous. I want to be, a rock and roll star. I want to be the best yoga teacher in the world and the most popular yoga teacher in the world. Things like this, without maybe having a lot of grounding behind it. Or, oh shoot, somebody sent me a message saying she can't get in. But anyway, it might not be grounded in reality, and it might not also be grounded in the work that would need to be done to get to that place, right? And it could also be a certain like numbing out to reality. Does that make sense? Like, if you think that, okay, so an example right now is that, oh, well, the coronavirus is affecting us right now, but by September, everything's going to be back to normal. Everything's okay. It's just a long vacation, or it's just my cave time, or my ashram life, or, and really kind of, I think there could be a numbing out in a sense, because you're not recognizing that there's a whole lot of people out there suffering. Right? And so the idea that we can just go back to normal after this in any amount of short time, I think is not grounded in reality. Right? And so because of this, then this gives us those waves, because when something's not grounded in reality, somewhere inside us, we know that. Right? Do you see this? Can you recognize that? You don't want to tell yourself the truth because the truth is too hard to handle, right? Like think about a marriage. Marriage is a good thing. Like if you're, or, a relationship, like when you were with somebody that you knew that it was the ending of the relationship, but you kind of fluctuate between like, no, we can do it. We can stay together. We can work this out, to like, no, fighting. And, it's a lot of ups and downs instead of standing back and looking at the reality of it. So when we're on the high, we might be into this magical place. Like it's all going to work out, right? And then we're on the low, and it's, oh no, it's never, there's no hope. I'm gonna, you feel a deep depression. So let's talk about mature hope. So I would, and I don't think this isn't exhaustive. This is just me sitting down, thinking and being inspired by things I've read and heard. So I think a mature hope is something based in reality. It's like, okay, I'm looking at the situation that we're in right now, and right now our country, our world, but I think France especially, is being hit hard with something that is affecting everybody here. Even if you don't actually feel it, it's affecting us on a subtle level because of the energy that is happening in our country. So hope is going to be based in that reality from where we are. So I'm going to be able to see where I am now. I don't need to hide behind some, magical thinking, or I don't need to hide behind, maybe taking too much alcohol, or immersing myself in Netflix for 24 hours a day. I don't need to hide behind any kind of thing that takes me out of reality. I can see it and I can process it. Because in fact, I think that this numbing out and this hiding behind these kind of, whatever your technique will be, whether it's blaming everybody else for the problem, or, whatever we all have our personal ways to kind of numb out and not deal with the reality. And I think that it's more important to actually face it. And we talked about that a couple weeks ago about vulnerability. right? And allowing ourselves to feel that vulnerability. And at this point, unless you're in a deep depression, I'm talking very general, because if somebody's in a deep depression, that's a whole different story. And so what else is a mature hope? So I think it's the basic trust in goodness, the goodness of life, right? It's this basic trust that despite ups and downs, things will work out. They might not work out and look the exact way that you see them, working like the way you want them, the way you project it to work out, but there's this deep sense that it's going to be fine, right? I just need to take one step at a time, and I'm going to get through this. We're going to get through this. This whole country is going to get through this. The world is going to get through this. So I have this book that's one of my favorite books. It's called The Circle of Fate, and nobody here has done the teacher training with it. Yeah, Hélène, right? Do you remember? And Elena, I don't think I talked about it yet in the teacher training. So I usually don't have the book with me, and so then I try to say the story, and I'm always making mistakes and missing people's names and everything. But this is the book, so even for people who are going to watch afterwards, it's a beautiful book. It's all hand painted, and I got it from when we were in India some years ago, and it's out of stock because it's out of publishing because I've ordered it for many people. I think I'm the one that ordered them all and got it out of publish, I used up anything that was published. So it's a story about the Lord Vishnu. And maybe I just read it. I'm sorry to do that, but it's going to sound nicer. So it's called, the first chapter here is called The Flight to Kailash. So Garuda carries Lord Vishnu over the snowy peaks of the Himalaya to Mount Kailash, home of Lord Shiva. Garuda waits while his master visits Lord Shiva and spots a tiny bird and an exquisitely beautiful bird singing on a nearby bush. He is moved by its beauty and can scarcely believe that something like it exists. Lord Yama, god of death, comes riding by on his buffalo. There is something wrong with his account books, and he wants to clear the matter with Shiva, the god of destruction. His eyes fall on the tiny bird, and he peers at it. The look on Lord Yama's face throws Garuda into despair. When the god of death looks at a creature in that way, it can only mean its time has come. He wants to save the bird from death. One part of him says it is not wise to fight the will of the gods. The other part cannot let him stand by doing nothing. Garuda is ruffled. Finally, the whisper of compassion triumphs over the certainty of knowledge. Garuda decides to save the bird's life, all the while begging the forgiveness of the gods. He carries the bird off to a faraway forest. Garuda leaves the tiny bird on a safe perch on a tree in front of a hermitage. Satisfied with a job well done, he wings his way back to the mountains. No sooner has he landed than Garuda meets Lord Yama, the god of death, coming out of Lord Shiva's abode. Unable to bear his curiosity, he asks Yama why he looked at the tiny bird so strangely. Yama replies that he was perplexed to see the bird near the mountains. According to his records, it was to be in a forest on a tree near a hermitage. A python was supposed to eat it, and the bird was to be reborn in the hermitage. But since the workings of fate are above the god of death too, he left it to fate to take care of the matter. So, and it goes on a little bit, but that's the main part of the story. And I find that story beautiful because it shows us that we can't see the whole story, right? So we don't see the whole story behind what is happening. And it also shows me that we have to follow our heart. So we have our mind, our wisdom, our thoughts, and then we have our heart. But in the end, if we follow our heart, it's actually going to bring us to exactly what is supposed to happen, right? But we don't maybe see that whole story. It's like looking at a movie reel, right? The whole reel of a movie, and only looking at one section of the movie. This is what we see. And then there's all the stuff that came before and all the stuff that is going to come after. Does that make sense? Kind of? Yeah. So, yeah, we can't see the whole picture. And so this teaches us that we should have faith in something greater than us, right? So if we have that faith, I think it brings us hope, actually. Right? It's not just like, oh, I don't need to do anything. I'm not going to be, it doesn't mean you become complacent. It just means that there is something greater than us. So what happens if we have lack of hope? So some of the things that can happen. So first of all, emotions are contagious. So have you felt this before, with other people? So therefore, things like despair, blame, frenzy, doom, gloom, right? All these things that sometimes we're experiencing when we watch the news and we read things, or even a magical optimism. Okay, so this is going back to the magical hope, right? It's not grounded in reality. Like sometimes you read these phrases like, I'm better and better every day. It's not really going to help you. You're not better and better every day. Sometimes you're better, sometimes you're less better. That's the reality of it. It's not like our life just goes in this steep curve, and as we are going through our life and aging, that we settle this out of the way, we settle that, and we just keep getting better and better. In fact, it's very up and down, up and down. Sometimes we go way down and then we have to climb back up, So this is, I think that knowing the reality of it makes us feel less separate. To know that everybody else is going through the same, similar, at different times and different experiences, but we're all going through that. I've never met anybody who says that their life has just been all up, right? So, and this magical optimism, I think it creates some distrust inside us. It's like if your child, let's say as an example, your child is really just not good at something. Let's say, they're just not a good athlete. They're not good at basketball. Let's make it more specific. And you're saying, no, you're really good. You just have to try harder. And the reality is they're trying, and they're just never getting better. And then they know how good the other kids at school are at this basketball. Then it actually makes them feel less trustful in you, less trustful in themselves, less trustful in the situation, because Mom, it isn't true. I can work as hard as I want, but I'm never going to be really great at basketball, right? It would be more, I think, creating a lot more trust to just say, you know what? Hey, that's something you're not good at, but you know what? Other things you're really good at. Now just do the best you can. Go out and have fun playing basketball, and you make a lot of mistakes and just enjoy it. If it's fun, then it doesn't matter if you're a great basketball player, right? Or musician, or drawing, or whatever the skills are, math, writing poetry, any kind of thing. But it's kind of a disservice if we are always telling our kids, that's amazing, oh yeah, that's amazing, oh you're the best, like it makes more sense to be a little bit grounded in reality and more compliment on their, oh that's, you made a great effort making that drawing. See what I mean? Anyway, so I'm gonna quote this amazing woman, Brach. So she calls this when we have lack of hope, she says it can be caused from this severed belonging, right? Because it's like we're cut off from ourself, from our deep self. We're cut off from feeling like we belong in the world. We're cut off from each other, right? And we're cut off maybe from the reality. So how does this come about? This lack of hope it can come about from childhood. So from childhood, this lack of feeling safe. For instance, lack of being seen. So the example I used about the basketball, this could be an example of lack of being seen. Like, okay, son, you're not good at basketball. This is seeing the person in front of you instead of pretending that, no, you are good at this or you're amazing. You can still love somebody who's not the best at everything, right? And so then it gives you this trust in I'm still worthy of love, even if I fail, even if I make a mistake, even if I get somebody angry, whatever. I still deserve love, and I still can have trust in the whole natural goodness of each other that's in myself, it's in others, and it's in our world. Does that make some sense? Yeah? So it can also be from not feeling nurtured, right? And these things, it's not to say that you should blame your parents if you feel like they didn't nurture you enough, or because the parents already get blamed for a lot, and the reason they are the way they are is because of the way that it's karma, family karma. How your parents behave is caused by the society, and how their parents behaved was caused by the society and the way their parents, and it just keeps going on and on. So it's not to point fingers, it's not to blame, it's just to try to enlighten ourselves and have a little bit more understanding, so that when we understand a little bit more, then maybe we're actually able to deal with the situations that we're presented with, right? So this equals a lack of trust, feeling in danger, right? Even in danger to be who you are, right? If you're going back to the basketball analogy, I don't know why I use that, I don't even have it written down, but let's say dad was a great basketball player, right? So you're going to feel maybe this pressure that you should be a good basketball player. So you don't like the sport, but you work really hard at it just to become, so at it. And then maybe you're going to feel like it was a danger to show who you really were. You weren't able to just tell your parents directly, I just don't like this. I don't want to do this. I want to play ping pong, or I want to draw or write stories instead. So this is a real danger, I think, and it's a danger in our society. And I think we all feel that this sense of not being able to show our authentic selves. And then what happens, we don't show our authentic self even to our own self. Right? We hide it by, oh, well, this is what I'm supposed to be, and I get love when I act like this, or when I do this or that. And so then we are conditioned to behave in ways that might not be our authentic self, because we get praise and love from being this way, right? Yeah, so that will lead to this lack of feeling this natural goodness in the world. And then also, not only from childhood, it doesn't all start in childhood, it also comes just from as we live our lives. If let's say we've been aggressed, like post-traumatic stress, if we've been aggressed, if we've been rejected, if we've had to deal with a really serious disease, or somebody we loved has to deal with a very serious disease, any kind of accident. All these kinds of things can bring us into, you may be feeling like, life is great and I have this, I've had a great childhood, but then, something happens to somebody really dear to you, and it can bring you into this place, hopefully just temporary, and then you climb out of that place, but it can bring you into this place. But I trusted this world and this happened to this person I really love. How could this happen? I thought that God was good, and all these kinds of things, right? So the more that we have life experiences that bring rejection and disease and accidents, and perhaps the more that we have this lack of hope and lack of faith and trust in things will always turn out well. So this lack of hope, it can result in depression. It can also result in aggression, right? Which is something to think about, because when people are aggressive, it's not their natural state. You can only be aggressive, you can only hurt another if you are already hurting. And this I truly believe. There's no way. When you feel great inside and you feel like you're able to be exactly who you are and you feel very authentic, you cannot hurt another person, because if that's the case, then you know that you are one with that other person. You won't be able to hurt another country, because you know that your countries are together, you're shared, we're sharing that earth. So any of this aggression only comes from this place of already feeling pain. It can also, this lack of hope can create lack of effort, right? When you don't feel hopeful, so why should I try? Why do I bother? Everything I do, it never turns out. So, I'm just gonna sit here and eat my potato chips and play my video games for the rest of my life, right? It's no use. So it can result in a lack of self-worth, in loneliness, distrust in others, right? Because if you've been let down by people, like you think about love, right? Love relationships. If you've been let down by another, then the next relationship you might have in the back of your head, maybe they're going to do the same thing that so-and-so did. But we have to cut it right away, because just because somebody else behaved one way doesn't mean another person will behave the same way. And we still need to keep our heart open with boundaries, right? Of course, we all have boundaries, and it goes back to the magical hope, right? If you don't have boundaries and you can't look at it in reality, then you'll keep that cycle. You'll keep choosing the relationship that's going to cause harm. But if you can be from a place of stability and have certain boundaries and be grounded in reality, then you can, then you'll be able to let go and know who you can maybe give some trust to. So, and it also results in distrust of the universe, right? And those, I don't know if I've felt depression, and when you go through depression, that's exactly how it feels. Like you're just deep in a hole in the bottom, and it'll never get better, right? If anybody feels like that, this talk is not enough. Okay, so please, you need more than just these kinds of talks. So how to lift yourself out of this? So how to lift the hope and the faith and the trust? So I think one of the main things, and like I said, if it's really deep despair, then I really believe in going and getting help from a professional. I think it's really important, because this kind of thing isn't enough, and a professional can really help you. And professional with this kind of thing can be really healing. So you need to get in touch with you, with you and the inside, with what really matters to you. What is in your heart? Who am I? This is where practices like the breathing practices, it calms the mind so that you can listen deeply inside. The asana practice, it gets you to concentrate so that you can listen more deeply inside. Meditation, same thing. And it depends where, it depends on your personality, it depends on many things, which one will be your calling. Some will be called immediately to meditation. Me personally, there is no way, I needed to do very dynamic yoga asana to kind of get in first into my own body, because I was just like a thought. I was just a head floating around that world and just acting and acting and acting without really reflecting on why I was acting. So it took me more time to get into more silent practices, and Mysore's good because it's a silent practice. And I think that it's an amazing practice, and I will still always do that forever, but as long as my body allows me to. But I think sitting and being quiet is also really good to have beside that. Not to only focus on yoga asana, but to have other aspects of yoga. So get in touch with oneself and to do practices that will bring trust in the basic goodness of life despite the ups and downs. And I'll talk later more about that. And also to be engaged and active. So when you feel like sometimes you just need to let go and be depressed and cry, but after a certain point you need to say, okay, now I just need to get up and I need to be active. So I like this analogy that the way I look at it is going through life when you go through life, you imagine if you were going down a very fast river, because I'm Canadian, so there's like whitewater rafting, and you think about the whitewater rafting rivers, you're going down this river, and in that river there's stones, there's the bank, there's logs, there's lots of things that can cause danger. So if I just go down my raft and I just let it go, for sure you're going to be crashing into many things, right? You're just always going to be, and then you're just going with the waves. The waves are bringing you without any consciousness. Now, the other thing you could try to do is go against that river. And I don't know if anybody tries to swim upstream, this is really tiring. At some point, you just lose it. You can't continue like this anymore. So that could be the other choice. Or you could find that middle path where you've got your oars and you're directing. So you're moving with the flow, because we need to move with the flow. That has to happen. We're moving with the flow, but we're also using some direction. Okay, there's a big rock there. I'm going to move and turn and go around that rock. I'm going to avoid this. I'm going to avoid that. But I'm moving with the flow of life. Right? And we need to be active like this. Does that make sense? I don't know. That's how I use, sometimes I also describe it as going through the open door. So you're in a room, all the doors are locked, you can take an axe and chop down a door, but there's something violent in that. Whereas maybe the open door is the path you need to follow, right? So going back to going to the heart and finding who you are, getting in touch with this. So you could do some different practices that just bring you to what really matters, what is really mattering to me, to really figure that out, because what really matters doesn't come from here. This is the analyzing.
right? We need some wisdom. We definitely need some wisdom, but I think the wisdom is not the little thoughts, you know, it's higher than that. It's the intuition, the intellect, but we also need to bring that into our heart. We need to listen to what our heart really wants. So what are your deep aspirations? What do you want to aim for? What we need to create a deep inner connection with ourselves. And it's not just once, right? Like if you've had some experiences in meditation or some periods of time where you've just felt like you're so connected. Has anybody felt like this? Even if it's really short, you know, you just feel totally connected. And then I don't know, something, you know, you go out onto the street or whatever happens, and then you're lost again. So we need to keep practicing it, keep coming back to what really matters to me, because it's so easy to, you know, lose the direction of that flow, right? And just to allow it to pull us in and not keep your oars and, you know, oh, no, back on track. You know, I'm moving with the flow, but I'm not going to crash into the bank. I'm not going to crash into that log. So we need to take time, I believe, in really connecting to oneself every day. So sometimes we say that, you know, like with Ashtanga yoga, as you all do Ashtanga yoga, it can be a little bit extreme where we say you need to practice every day. Right? And you have to practice every day. But there's times in our life where the practice isn't really, we're not feeling it. It feels forced. It feels kind of violent, or your body is sore, or, you know, there's tragic, you know, like I think about when my mother got sick, she got pancreatic cancer, and I couldn't practice this dynamic practice because it felt like there was just, I was already making an effort just to keep myself together, right? And so then to go on my mat and do this very hard asana practice, it wasn't aligned with what I was needing. I needed to nurture myself. And so instead, I did restorative yoga for 3 months. But then at some point, I felt like I was kind of getting too easeful into the restorative yoga. It was just like, it was almost an excuse to not do the dynamic practice. So at some point I started recognizing that in myself, and it was like, okay, Linda, you know, enough of that. Now you've mourned, you've accepted it, you've cried a lot, you've written journals, you've done all those things to self-heal yourself, and now it's time to get back on my, you know, dynamic mat and keep my, you know, my body in good form, because restorative yoga won't necessarily do enough of that, and I don't do other sports, so you know, I need the Ashtanga yoga. So I think we need to take that time to connect inwards every day, even if it's only 5 minutes, like before you wake up, lying in bed, connecting inwards, or before going to bed, even if it's minimal, like this, or sometimes through the day, just taking a time and, you know, coming back to your breath and your heart center. And then we also, I think we really need to connect with others, because we are social beings, and it's really important that we do connect with others. And we can see that when going into confinement, unless you are at a really, you know, a certain level of spiritual awakening, it can be maybe too hard, and especially on your own, because if you go to a retreat, you have a, you know, the spiritual leader or the teachers who are there, that when you're going into despair, you can always go and talk to somebody, right? And then I think we need to do what we enjoy, what we love, right? Like coming back to love, and the Circle of Fate book, it also told me this, that if I do what I truly love, I will be following my heart. I will be following what is meant to happen. So if it doesn't mean that every moment of your life you're in this joy and, you know, only doing pleasurable things. I'm not meaning that, but it's something that nourishes your heart, makes you feel like it's like, you know, when you eat a really good, healthy meal, you feel nourished. When you're with a friend that, you know, you're just connected with, you feel nourished at the end of the outing or the talk. So, and then how trust in the possibility to become all that we can be. I think they kind of are joined together, because when we connect inside like this, then we feel that there's more than just the outer world, and you feel that place of peace. So then we can, it brings this possibility that we can be all that we are, right? I can be everything I am meant to be. It may not be what the little mind, you know, like when growing up, you think you're going to be a famous fashion designer, you know, right? Or, you know, whatever it may be, I'm going to be a, you know, I'm going to be the richest person in Canada, or I'm going to, you know, these kind of fantasy kind of hopes. It may not be that, but when you connect inwards, then you will know that everything you are is just so perfect. You won't even be striving for those kind of superficial things, because you won't need that, because you will be feeling so great and authentic and peaceful where you are. So what else? So yeah, and to have faith in the process, faith in that I take step 1. I don't need to worry about step 15, right? I just need to take step 1, because step 1 will lead me to step 2, which will lead me to step 3, and will lead me down that path without having to worry. Because if we think about step 15 or 20, this will just get overwhelmed, right? We won't be able to take step 1, because that will just feel like an impossibility, right? Does that make sense? So taking one step at a time, and recognizing that trust will help us recognize that change is a natural law, right? Prakriti. Change will always be happening in the outer world, right? That is the nature of our universe, to have change. And so whether we want that change to happen or don't want that change to happen, this is all mental stuff. And so when we get deeply connected with our deep self, then we're going to be more able to trust and accept that this change is what is supposed to be happening. And we'll be more at peace with that change. And I like that mantra, this too will pass, because then it's not permanent. So yes, we have coronavirus, for example. It is not permanent. We're not pretending like it's not there and everything is great because I'm great in my home, so everything is great. It almost insults others who are really suffering to have that attitude, because it's not great, and it's not great for a lot of people out there. And to recognize that and know that we are connected, but I'm doing what I need to do because this is my role, right? Our role is to be staying at home, and I feel like my role is to offer yoga classes, even if I can't go to the yoga studio. Whatever our role may be, is finding that and having faith that that is what I need to do right now, and eventually this too will pass, and it'll be something you look back on and be like, wow, I survived. I survived that. Amazing, right? And then engaging. So when you really listen to your true self, it's going to tell you that you need to engage, right? It's not just sitting back. I don't know. I really believe in this. This is the Bhagavad Gita, right? We are meant to act. We are in this world to act. And there are a few beings who are meant to separate and go to the mountains or go to the cave, but those are one in billions. You know, us who are householders, we're called householders because we are living in a town or a city. We're interacting with our family members, we're interacting with a job, we pay rent or we pay mortgage. You know, we are householders, so we are meant to act in this world. And even non-acting is in some way a way of acting. Okay, so yeah, anyways, I'm going to go off topic. So, and acting, it cultivates energy. Okay. So we cultivate energy, and then when we cultivate this energy and we want to cultivate some healing and positive energy, then we are receptive to opportunities. Okay, because if we're cultivating negative energy, we block ourselves, right? Nothing can happen. Whereas when we cultivate positive energy, then we see the opportunities. Despite what is happening, there are opportunities. There's opportunity to have a talk like this. I was thinking about that. Like, I never do this publicly. I do it in the teacher training, but never ever do I do that publicly. And I've gotten some good feedback from the talks that I put online. And I'm just like, wow, okay, so, you know, something good came out of it. It challenged me to do this, because, you know, it's kind of scary to put myself out there on, you know, on social media or, you know, on YouTube, where other people can look at it and pick me apart and say whatever they want about me. You know, it's easier to stay in the teacher training where it's not recorded and nobody can prove that I said these things afterwards or I did ridiculous things. Anyways, and then, so we need to step out of negative thought patterns and a negative point of view of who we think we are, right? This is really important because we all, I think, have these negative thoughts about ourselves, and we need to learn to step out of that and be connected with our authentic self. I was going to go into talking about the vrittis, the worlds of the mind, which I'm not going to have time for. So you can write these sutras down, because if you want to do some investigation, I think that they work well with this talk. Sutra 1.5 and 1.6. This talks about what the worlds of the mind are and how they can be painful or unpainful. And then in the details about all those different worlds of the mind come in sutras 1.7 to 1.11. And then one way of looking at the obstacles to mental clarity, these are in 1.30. I'm going to talk about it at another time, but just if you want to do some self-study. And how to get over the mental obstacles that are resulting in not having a clear mind. It's 1.32. So write all those down, and if you have a nice Yoga Sutra book, have a look at it. What I want to talk about is doubt, and which are part of the obstacles. So Patanjali says that doubt is an obstacle to mental clarity. So what are you telling yourself? So we need to find this time to go quiet and really listen to what we are telling ourselves, about the world, about others, you know, any negative thought, because this separates us from being open to possibilities, right? I'm not a good person. I don't deserve more than I do. Oh, I'm in a bad relationship because I'm a bad person, and so this is what I deserve, right? People are we are all telling ourselves stuff like this, but we don't see it because we don't open ourselves up to really hearing it. So this imprisons us into this place. So yeah, and so what we need to learn is, what does the situation, what do I look like when I don't believe all those limiting thoughts about myself? What does this situation, what am I capable of if I don't have those limiting possibilities? What does our whole coronavirus situation look like if I don't limit myself to negative thoughts, right? Then you can act. If you have too many negative thoughts, you can't really act in a positive manner, or in that flowing with the stream manner. So what I want to do is a little meditation to try to bring ourselves to that heart place. So come back to sitting in a comfortable position, but not leaning on anything, and with an elongated spine. Close the eyes. And so just start to get in touch with the body. Noticing the body. Noticing the inner vibration. So if it feels very fast, erratic, and start to breathe deeply so that the vibration starts to become more slow, still, calm. And reconnecting with the breathing. Just noticing your inhales and noticing your exhales. Feeling the fullness of the breath. And recognizing that you're alive. The miracle of being alive, the miracle of breath, the miracle of our bodies. And start to bring yourself to your heart center. And see if you can see from your heart what you truly love. So perhaps a person, an animal, an activity, nature. So pick something that from the heart you just completely love. And then noticing the feelings that come with this, the warmth, the peace, the settledness. Notice the trust in that love. The faith. And then see if you can keep those same feelings, the faith, the trust, the love, and bring it to yourself. You truly love who you are, just as you are. You have faith, complete faith in yourself. And how do you look? How do you see yourself? And you have this complete trust in your authentic self. The faith in being able to feel happy, at peace, despite the ups and downs of life. So there's this place that is changeless within, place that forever lives, forever is happy. That when we can connect to this, we can feel more at ease with the outer world, the prakriti, that is all change, always changing. It's the interaction between these two worlds that can help us find this essential trust in the goodness of the world. Gives us hope. Despite the change, it's all exactly what is supposed to happen. You can follow your heart to know which step to take. Grounded in reality and in this deep wisdom. The wisdom that comes from the heart. And so that whenever we step into the negative thoughts, as soon as we notice it, we can bring ourselves back. Remember that there is this place that is at peace. And if I follow this place, follow my heart, that everything will be fine. Bring the hands in front of the chest. And let's chant Om Shanti. Inhaling. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. I hope that makes some sense and can be helpful for you. It's helpful for me.